Here's what happened this week. The Supreme Court didn't rule on tariffs. Jerome Powell confirmed he's under criminal investigation for a $2.5 billion Fed headquarters project. European allies started openly discussing NATO troop deployments in Greenland and potential sanctions on American tech companies. You saw all of it. And you know what you felt? Relief. Not confidence that things are fine. Not clarity about what comes next. Just relief that nothing blew up today. That feeling, that quiet exhale when the headline turns out to be just another headline, is what this episode is about. Because that relief, it's starting to cost you. Be honest with yourself for a second. When Monday came and there was no tariff ruling, no executive order, no enforcement surprise, you didn't feel disappointed. You felt spared. You checked the news, saw phrases like alternative legal mechanisms under review, different pathways being considered. And your brain did something quietly dangerous. It translated delay into safety. You didn't think it consciously. You felt it. If this was really urgent, they would have moved by now. If they have backup plans, this probably works out fine. That's not analysis. That's your nervous system standing down because nothing forced it to stay alert. Every time that happens, your brain learns that calm was the right call. So next time, it gets easier to stay calm, even when maybe you shouldn't. Then you saw the Greenland headline. European governments, our NATO allies, openly discussing troop deployments to Greenland. Sanctions against U.S. tech companies being floated in Brussels. 5 years ago, that would have stopped you cold. This time, you scrolled past it. And that's the problem. Not that Greenland matters, but that your reaction to absurdity is shrinking. Absurdity used to trigger alarm. Now it triggers dismissal. Because once something sounds too ridiculous to be real, your brain stops treating it as actionable risk. You're not tracking it anymore. You're filing it under noise. That's how normalization starts. Not with a decision, with a feeling. Then came Powell. The chairman of the Federal Reserve confirms he's under criminal investigation. Grand jury subpoenas issued, testimony from 2022 to 2023 under review, linked to a controversial $2.5 billion headquarters renovation. 10 years ago, that would have dominated the news cycle for weeks. This time, stocks dipped Tuesday morning, gold ticked up briefly. By afternoon, everything looked fine. So your brain quietly updated its model. If even this doesn't break anything, the system must be more resilient than I thought. But look closer. Nothing got resolved, nothing got cleared, nothing actually improved. You just learned that authority can be under investigation without immediate consequences. You're not safer, you're just more tolerant. Now stack the pattern you've been living in: tariff ruling delayed, court decisions pending, Fed chair nomination not announced. Everything important is sitting in the same status, in progress, nothing approved, nothing canceled, and that creates a strange kind of comfort, because there's no deadline forcing your hand. You tell yourself, I'll reassess when the ruling drops. I'll hedge once policy is finalized. That sounds totally reasonable. But here's what's actually happening. Clarity keeps getting postponed, and in progress is becoming a place you live, not because it's safe, but because it doesn't demand action today. And every day you don't act, staying becomes a little more default. Here's where it starts hitting you. Not in the headlines, not in your portfolio balance yet. In your behavior, you open your brokerage app, scan your positions. Nothing dramatic happened overnight. You close it. You don't rebalance. You don't hedge. You don't trim. Not because you analyzed the situation and decided exposure was right, but because you don't feel threatened enough to act. You tell yourself, I'll check again tomorrow. That sounds responsible. But look at what actually happened. You didn't decide to stay exposed. You just delayed the decision long enough that staying became the path of least resistance. That's the first real cost, loss of agency. You think you're waiting for information, but what you're actually doing is letting comfort make the decision for you. Then comes the government intervention that makes everything feel handled. Mortgage rates dropped to 5.99%, lowest in nearly 3 years. Treasury announces $200 billion in mortgage-backed security purchases through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac homebuilder stocks. Rally. The optics are calming. You see that and think, okay, they're stepping in. The adults are managing this. And that narrative feels good because it allows you to believe, even if things are uncertain. Someone's got a handle on it. You don't feel reckless staying invested, you feel prudent. That's the most dangerous kind of comfort because it's not based on risks disappearing. It's based on risks being managed well enough that you don't have to engage with them yourself. You're outsourcing your risk assessment to the system. Here's the trap you're in. By the time cost feels like pain, it's already locked in. Right now, nothing hurts, no margin calls, no forced liquidations, no portfolio down 20%. So your brain keeps saying, see, this is fine. But something is happening underneath. You're becoming psychologically invested in continuity. You're betting without choosing to bet that delays will resolve cleanly. Absurd headlines will stay hypothetical. Authority erosion has natural limits. Someone will step in before things actually break. You didn't consciously place that bet. It formed slowly, while you were getting comfortable with things not breaking. That's the second cost. Emotional investment in an outcome you never analyzed. Here's why you can't just wake up and leave this position. Leaving now would require you to feel uncomfortable on purpose. It would mean admitting, maybe nothing's wrong yet, but I've stopped questioning why I feel so calm. And that's harder than reacting to a crash. Crashes give you permission. Everyone's moving. The decision feels obvious. This state doesn't give you that. It just keeps asking. How long can you stay relaxed while uncertainty stacks up? And so far, your answer has been a little longer. Not because you've done the analysis, but because nothing is forcing you to stop. Let's be clear about something. Nothing forced you to stay where you are. No court ruling locked you in. No policy decision removed your options. You stayed because everything sounded manageable, because nothing screamed danger loud enough, because the story felt livable. And that's the only thing worth noticing right now. Not whether Powell's investigation matters, not whether Greenland escalates, not whether tariffs stick, but the exact moment when this is strange quietly turned into this is fine. Because that moment, that transition you barely noticed, that's where the cost started. That's where you are right now.